Okay, let's start all over here, and I'm going to go Control N just so we see what it looks like at the start. I'm not going to bother saving this. And depending on how you have things set, use pressure. No, we don't want to use pressure. We're just going to lock that in, and we're going to lock our strength in as well too. You notice it's kind of light though, but let's bring that right up. And now we get a solid stroke every time. I'm going to undo that, and we're going to go to circle. I'm on frame 1. I'm going to draw a circle, and there it is. Not too exciting, but there's our circle. You hit enter. Once we draw the circle, hit enter, and that locks it in. Okay, so if we actually just trace and draw, it almost feels like the program is frozen. You can't really do anything. And that's because we have not hit enter yet to lock it in place. Okay, very common mistake where people think it's frozen. Again, so I would draw that one more time. There's our circle. It's a little bit bigger. Hit enter. It's locked in. Okay, next I'm going to go to edit mode, and we do that by going up here to edit mode. I could also hit the tab button. I click once to select it. I go to the next frame, frame 2, G key to grab it, and you can see the onion skinning. We see the previous layer. That might be too far. We just want it to move a tiny little bit on that first frame. Okay, that was easy. On to the next frame. Grab it again and shift it down just a little bit more. But we're also going to start scaling it. As it falls, we're going to use squash and stretch here, so we'll scale it in the Z a little bit. Might have to grab it a bit more, but we should probably scale it in a bit as well too, just to proportionally size it. On to the next frame. We'll grab it, move it down more, and we'll scale it in the Z a little bit longer, and scale it in the X, make it a little bit skinnier. Okay, on to the next frame. G key to grab. And we can go one more. Nice and, scale Z, scale X, SZ for scale Z, SX for scale in the X plane. I'm just going to scale the whole thing up just a little bit so it looks, again, approximately the same size. Frame 6. We're on frame 6 down here. Each time I'm hitting the right arrow key in between frames. Grab it, move it down a lot, but I'm going to start to scale it back again in the Z and scale it out in the X. Okay, on to the next frame. And now we're going to grab it and we're going to assume that it's hitting the bottom here. So we're going to scale it in the Z, bring it back mostly to flat, and scale in the X out a little bit like this. And then on to the next frame. 8. Scale it in the X. Scale it in the Z. And G key to grab it. And this is the bottom here, so that's why I'm going to line the bottom. On to the next frame. Frame 9. Scale in the X. Go quite wide. Scale in the Z. We're going to exaggerate this again a bit. G key to grab it and align it there. We've got our first 9 frames. Okay, that was pretty easy. Not too bad at all. Now we might want to we could have some fun and maybe put a face inside here. So let's do that. I'm going to go back to draw mode on frame 1. I'll use the arrows, whoops, not frame 0, frame 1. And what I'll do is go back to draw mode, hit the tab button, that'll take you there. I'm going to zoom in a bit. I'm using the middle mouse button, and I'm going to use the shift plus the middle mouse button to drag down. Shift key with your left hand, middle mouse, and then we can actually move around inside the 3D window. I'm going to select the the pencil. I'm going to make sure we're on solid stroke. And I'm going to also go here to mode, and I'm going to select black. We're just going to do this a little bit differently now because we're going to be filling this in, so I'm going to want those colors. But we'll start with black, and our little guy is quite happy. Let's see if we can do a better job than that. Oh, wow. Drawing is terrible. Last try. If I don't get it perfect, that's okay. There, that's good. And things are looking up. And we got our happy guy. On to the next frame, frame 2. And frame 2 is the one obviously that's in black. You can see about the difference here. We want to try and keep a consistent distance between where I draw the eyes so that we get the appearance of animation. So if it's that far down, we want to move the eyes that far down below. Okay, and we'll try and draw that same curve of a smile, slightly less, because remember, our character feels like they're falling all of a sudden. Okay, so now we've got a bit more of a drop, And I'm going to start to smooth the eyebrows out. A little bit of fear in, oh, that's a bit too big for the eyebrow. That's all right. We want to see some fear in their eyes. And this is no longer going to be a smile as much, just sort of like that. Okay, on to the next frame. And now this is the part where they're starting to really feel like they're falling. And maybe that nose is not quite right. We want to try and keep it consistent as much as possible. And the eyebrows now, maybe looking a little bit afraid. Okay, I'm going to try and speed this up. Shift middle mouse to move it down. And now really going to fear here. Next frame. So sort of bracing for the collision with the ground. It's starting to look almost upset. And just a tiny little bit of an eye here. And then we start to get squished. So we just draw it like this. And then really squished. And I think we're done. Okay, so we've got our first 9 frames. And we should probably color those in. And then we are going to duplicate them. I'm going to back up a little bit here. We're going to do a 20 frame animation. So we should go to the end frame here and set that to 20. And let's just play it. Okay, it's always kind of satisfying to watch it. It looks like something does not look right here, but that's okay. We're going to fix this. Next step is I'm going to zoom in once, which is the middle mouse button. And I might just shift middle mouse to move it down a bit. So the next step is I want to fill this in. And we're going to use a color to do that. So we have to do a couple of things here. First, we're going to hit the tab button, which will take us into draw mode. There we go. And in draw mode, I think I was in draw mode, but that's okay. I want to make sure I select the fills layer. Okay, so move from lines to fills. I'm going to select the bucket fill, and I'm going to select here solid fill. Then I'm going to select a color, and I think I'll go with a nice pink color. There we go. I'm also going to do one more thing, because if I fill right now, it just fills one at a time. But we can actually get tricky here, and we can click on this button, which is the multi-frame. And now if I select all the frames that I want to fill, I'll use the B key to do that. So I can drag over top. Look at that, all the frames show up. Now, anytime that frames overlap, so if I click here, I've got actually, I think 4 frames that overlap, and it will fill in all 4 of those frames. This will fill in these 2 because they overlap, and I click down here, it gets the last 3. So 3 clicks should fill the whole thing in. Let's just make sure, and yep, it looks like it worked. Okay, so again, it's overlapping frames, that's what matters. I'm going to turn off the multi-frame. We don't really need to see that now. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go down to the bottom window here, lift up a bit, and I'm going to zoom in. I'm using the middle mouse button. Now it's a bit awkward. There we go, that's better. I'm just going to keep zooming in. I'm using the scroll wheel to do that. Move over a bit. And all I want to do is make sure I can see the individual frames here. I'm going to go to my, I guess I'll go to 10th frame. And I'm going to go, they're all selected now. I could use the B key to drag over top and select them if they're not selected for some reason. Shift D is duplicate. And then I drag with the mouse. So I'm going to drag them right to here. Now I'm going to right click on them. This is the tricky part, because if we play this right now, look what happens. It just falls twice. But if I go back to where the mouse was, or back to frame 10, right click and go mirror by times over current frames. Okay, now I got to grab it, use the G key to grab. That's okay. And just drag them out. But that should actually give us the effect that we want. Now I could just throw one more frame up at the top and let it sort of pause dramatically for a second. Let's do that. To add a frame though, I got to be careful. We got to work with lines first and then the fills. So what I'm going to do is zoom in a bit. Shift middle mouse, and zoom in was the scroll wheel. And then on this frame, this 19th frame, what I'm going to do is go to edit mode. I'm going to select the outside. I'm going to select all that. I'm going to G key, grab it, and just shift it up slightly. And it looks like it didn't grab what I wanted. So I'm going to select the lines. Maybe I need to click there. There we go. Grab those. And it's still grabbing the inside, which is interesting. Let's see if I can figure out why. I'm going to make this layer, the line, fills layer, invisible. There we go. Maybe I can use the B key to select it all. Okay, I'll go to the 20th frame now. Grab it. That's what I want. And I'm going to scale it in the X out a little bit and scale it in the Z up slightly like that. Just flatten it out a bit. Okay. And then I'm going to turn those back on again, the fills, and we're going to have a problem because it's not going to be, this layer is not going to be filled. So to do that, all we do is go down to the fills layer. We go to draw mode. We go to solid fill, and we click inside here. And I think now, okay, we got to zoom back again a little bit here. If we click play, we're finished our animation. And look at that. That's quite a satisfying bounce. I like that. Okay, that's it for now. Over and out.